Welcome back to another episode of NFT Catcher Podcast. We'd like to remind everybody that nothing on the show is meant as financial advice, and to please do your own research. Thank you, and enjoy the show.
Now the subject is NFTs.
They're known as non-fungible tokens, or NFTs.
NFTs are exploding in popularity.
This is a technology that will forever change the way people interact.
So it is happening whether you understand it and like it or not.
This phenomenon is moving. The digital.
You have now joined Jenny from the blockchain and Michael Keene on the NFT Catcher Podcast.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the NFT Catcher Podcast with me, Jenny from the blockchain, and my co-host, Michael Keene. Today, we have a special guest. You guys know how much I love bringing on NFT OGs, and I'm honestly so excited right now. Maddie, aka DCLBlogger, has been a dream guest of mine for a long time, and I finally reached out to him, and he said yes right away, so I was pumped. But yes, Maddie, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. No, pleasure to be here and chat NFTs. Yeah, awesome. Was that the Pokemon Gotta Catch 'em all at the end of the thing, by the way?
Yes.
I laughed at that.
Nice.
Love it. I love we're all nerds.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, our It's Just Los. We have to shout out It's Just Los who made that for us. We didn't even say anything, no guidelines. He just made that, and it was super, super awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's been our theme song for the whole year, except for episode 1. Episode 1, we used Andy bought some weird NFT that you were allowed to use the music for commercial rights, and we used that beat. But
wait, what? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, the first one, it was a what was it called? The Positive Pandas. Our buddies Iggly, these guys on Clubhouse made this little project, and they put a beat behind every image, and you were allowed to use the beat for commercial use. So we used that first, and then Los hooked it
Positive Pandas, eh?
Positive Pandas.
Sounds
Shout out to the
typical
Positive
Avatar
Pandas.
project.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. Adjective animal, right?
Yep.
I'm not sure if you remember this at all, but my sister actually interviewed you on her podcast, On Chain Studios podcast. She's my twin sister, so I don't know if we sound alike, but it was a year ago, straight up a year ago. And I watched it right before this, just to
Oh, absolutely remember, of course. Yeah, Steph. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And she is a master key holder. So she holds all 3. She has key 1, key 2, key 3, and key 4. I have just 3 and 4. Michael also has all of them.
I do, sir. I do.
Key master. I love it.
Man.
Nice.
Yeah, man.
Nice.
You know it. When did that first one drop? Because I think they dropped way early, before I was even in NFTs, or maybe right around. I got in February of 2021. When did the first one drop for that?
Oh man, it was such a long time ago now. I think a year and a month ago. So I believe April.
It was in April. Okay. Yeah, that was right before I got into ETH. I started Top Shot VV, and then people will be shocked to hear, but I followed Gary V into ETH for V Friends.
He says this in every episode.
Not every episode, but a lot of them.
Us V Friends and Bored Ape launched the same week, I believe.
Okay.
And V Friends was actually going to launch the same day we were, but then for some reason Gary postponed it a week.
Yep.
And we were yes, we should really launch ASAP. So we just put it out there.
I love that. That's hilarious. Yeah. That's great. What a time for NFT projects launching. I mean, you guys, V Friends, Bored Apes, all of it. Gutter Cats, Cool Cats was shortly thereafter. There was a, Pixel Vault was right then. All that stuff was just really amazing.
It was interesting, wasn't it? I feel there was way more success stories or more hits back then, maybe because there was less people launching, so more thought behind it.
Yeah. There were so few. We knew everyone that was dropping. You knew every project. Now there's I read an article, I think on one of the days in July, there was 75 new projects dropped.
Yeah. And it's only going to get more, right?
Right.
I mean, if you talk about us being in the infancy stages of this space, it's scary to think how crazy it's going to get.
Right. Well, now it's so easy too. There's these cut and paste websites where you can just kind of put stuff in. I mean, we've been talking a lot about AI. Maybe we'll even get into that a little bit, but imagine where Imagine if you could tell AI, I would like a 10,000 project of donkeys. You know what I mean? Like, and it makes it for you. That's gonna be coming, and then there can be hundreds of projects a day.
Yep.
All right, we got to run it back really quick because
run it back.
Yeah, well, we got to talk about
the
start of
rails.
It's getting crazy here. We got to peel it back a little.
Right.
Okay, because we got to talk about how you first got into NFTs. I mean, I remember, and you kind of post sparingly now, but you used to post a lot on your YouTube channel, DCLBlogger. And you were making videos 4 years ago. I scrolled all the way down. 4 years ago, you were making videos about Decentraland. So, that's some OG
early
stuff right there. But how did you get into NFTs originally? Like, who introduced you?
No one introduced me, actually. I randomly, luckily, fell upon it when my portfolio was sort of crashing. It was the start of the bear market in 2017, and everything was going down real quick. And I was like, "Oh, holy shit! I need to diversify." I was like total noob investor back then. So I remember going to like the second page of CoinMarketCap to try and find some low cap coins or something, and I found Decentraland, and it was like this logo looked like a game. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Went on the website. There was like this video of you can own your own land. And again, interesting concept, very different to back then. It was a lot about currencies. I'm not sure if you guys were there, but it was about like, the next Ethereum, Neo and Nano being a competitor to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin competing with XRP. And it was like a very currency and very core technology oriented, nothing to do with entertainment, nothing really to do with media and all the fun stuff we see now that NFTs can do. So yeah, this was something that stood apart. And then when I joined the Discord, there was a bunch of people buying and selling virtual land. And that was like a completely new world back then to me. I was like, oh, holy shit, people are buying and selling virtual land on blockchain somehow. I got to get into this. And back then I think there was just virtual land. There was maybe CryptoKitties, CryptoPunks I had seen, but not really. They hadn't really blasted off that much, or at least I hadn't seen them blast off that much. Art, I don't even think art was a thing back then, or as much of a like on blockchain, on-chain thing. But went in there, started buying and selling land. I looked out for other things, saw Ethermon and some other projects, and was sort of experimenting with it. That's how I got into it. So sort of by chance, but really got into it when I was trading land and trading NFTs and making good money with it. And I was like, oh, well, this is a good way to increase my Mana holdings or my Ethereum holdings without putting more money in. And that was just like, this is exactly what I'm going to do until the next sort of bull phase comes along. So that's what I did. And
this was in what, 2019?
No, 2018. Jan. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So then why did you decide to start making videos about this?
So I actually have a marketing background. Actually I have an engineering background. I studied engineering at uni, worked a couple of years, didn't really like the field. So just quit one day after my second year in my career, and then just thought I'd learn how to do business and entrepreneurship. But very quickly you learn the importance of marketing, social media, building awareness. Like if you don't have that, then nothing you build will have eyeballs, right? So for the next 6 to 7 years, I was just building blogs. I was running Facebook ads and learning how to sell products for companies. I was affiliate marketer. I was like e-commerce, drop shipping, Teespring, name it all. Like I was doing everything. And the core of all of that is marketing. It's learning how to grow a brand. It's learning how to sell, find value ads, bridges, and things like that. So when I started land, and literally when I traded my first 2 or 3 lands, straight away in my mind I was like, let's make a course, let's make a blog, let's make content. So straight away I was like doing case studies, and my blog doesn't exist now. I think I've taken it down, but there was some really early blog posts on like how I made $3,000 buying and selling land. And I'd show the whole case study. I'll show the whole conversation, me negotiating, everything. And it was all there. So yeah, that's why I got into content, because it was just like the nature of marketing, and I had done it for 6 years.
That's awesome. And who were like because I feel like only person I can think of for creating content back then was you. Like, who were the other big content creators at the time?
There was none. I'm really sure there was none.
Dang. Or maybe they're just super small. Like it was hard
so
to search
small.
for them and stuff.
There wasn't anything to talk about. Like, I mean, yeah, you could talk about blockchain games, but there was no games, right? You would talk about the theory of games and what it could mean, and there's some select small games you could talk about. You could talk about virtual land, but there was only Decentraland. There was like select top projects that were doing well, but because of the bear market, no one was really covering them, or they weren't getting that much attention. So I think I was literally the largest blogger back then and content creator, which wasn't that large anyway. I think I had like 300 followers on YouTube at the time. But back then, the highest Twitter account on NFTs was on the media side was like 1,000 people or 1,200 people. So yeah, it was so small back then.
You still own a lot of Decentraland?
Personally, yeah, I do. I own Mana land. I've started to, like, when I started to build the Metakey, I started to see things in a different perspective of like, well, how do you utilize these assets to build value rather than how do you just invest and let them be? So yeah, I have Mana, I have land. I definitely don't have as much land as I used to. I think at some stage I had like 500 pieces. I think now I've got like maybe 40 to 50 personally.
Sure.
But yeah, I do have a little bit of everything still.
Cool.
What are some things that you can do in Decentraland that maybe most people don't know about? Because I feel like a lot of people, when they think about land, they're just like, a lot of these metaverse lands, it's like, okay, I can buy it, as an investment. What do I do on this land? Like, and I know Decentraland is one of the metaverses that it's actually like, there's actually things to do in Decentraland, unlike a lot of other like land things where they're just building right now.
Well, exactly right. Decentraland's one of the only places, and there's crypto voxels, there's Somnium Space, there's a few others, but I mean, because I started with Decentraland, I have a bit of a soft spot. So for me, it became like a sandbox area to test what can be done with virtual land. The idea was that brands would want it one day to build an activation and have a presence and sell stuff and all the sort of things that brands would want to do in the real world. And I think I'm seeing the sort of trajectory where Decentraland started to really gain momentum is when the art crowd sort of blew up. And then suddenly collectors were building museums and putting their art in those museums. And it was a way for them to maybe even start their own museums, their own virtual museums, and virtual collecting was like a thing. People are building some games. People are running events. There's not that much of an audience that consistently hang around Decentraland, but there's I think the way Decentraland works, and I think these virtual worlds will work in the future, is that there'll be events and there'll be links that you can put out there using your social media, and then everyone can just join, click a link, and hopefully be there in 3 seconds in front of the event and whatever you're sort of showcasing, whether it be in a conference or a festival or whatever. So there's that. I know for our company, like, we're using that land to have some brands that reach out to us. They want to build a presence, and we're working in some sort of an integration with the Metakey. And suddenly we're saying, all right, well, why don't we build you a presence where you can host a meetup? You can do some AMAs in, the industry of maybe sports or whatever it may be. And for us, it's a win because we get to work with a cool brand and bring some value to Metakey owners. For them, it's a win because they have some presence and they can blast out to the metaverse space that, hey, look, we're here, we're active, we're doing something. And they're happy to spend. Like today, they're spending, from $10K all the way up to $100,000 to build a presence in Decentraland or a presence in these spaces. But in the future, these brands are absolutely going to spend millions and millions of dollars to build in these spaces and run events, because that's where the eyeballs are going to be. If the eyeballs go to the metaverse and there's 5 to 10 million people coming to these events, absolutely a brand's going to spend a ton of money there, right? So I'm just seeing Decentraland as the sandbox to experiment with the ideas and concepts and to find little wins, which are scalable when the audience scales to millions of people.
It's funny you keep calling it the sandbox because there's also Sandbox.
I know.
Which is kind of a similar. What do you have take on kind of like some of the other metaverse lands, like Sandbox, Crypto Voxels, any other ones that kind of you're interested in, or are you like a Decentraland maxi?
No, I'm open to everything. We have land in the Sandbox. We've got land in DCL. We've got land in the Somnium Space. I mean, some of our investors will go on to have land in the Bored Ape, Improbable. So we're happy to deploy things anywhere, wherever the people go.
Yep.
I guess it depends on what we'd want to build in those spaces. Like Decentraland is good because it's an open, like an SDK kit where you can build whatever you want. Whereas the sandbox is more voxelized, as you guys know. And I think it's different, right? I believe like when you go from one land to the other, you have to teleport to that land. You can't actually just look over your shoulder and see what the other land is doing.
Yeah.
Whereas Decentraland, you can walk, you can see what they've built. And I mean, that's there's a lot of issues there that Decentraland have to work through, but Sandbox coming from the gaming environment where they've instanced like each, section of land where it's its own game, it's its own experience. So it's like scalable and it's fluid and the motion is good. It works a bit differently. So looking at what the usability is, the things that we're building and where we'd want to go, but no issue going anywhere. The only issue I have is maybe being behind some projects that promise a metaverse or promise a virtual world, because just being with Decentraland, I know it took like 4 years to get to where it is today. And today there's still a lot of improvement to be done, but it took 4 years. And that's of a team that were dedicated to make it work. Sandbox, again, that's been like 3 to 4 years. It's not even open to public yet. So it takes a long time, a lot of resources, a lot of money, a lot of support to build a section of the metaverse. So anyone promising that, just not having those other boxes ticked, I just feel it's a bit of a risky play, right?
Yeah, it's a good point. When that whole glut of projects started coming toward the end of last year, there was a lot of we're building our own metaverse and all that stuff. And yeah, it's a good point to make for sure. Yeah,
it's tough. It's tough. Probably cost you a couple $1 million to build out, unless you do all the development yourself, right?
Sure.
But yeah, and then it's also like, well, if there's giant metaverse projects, putting in hundreds and hundreds of people, resources, and tens of millions of dollars in building it out, and how are like some smaller people going to compete with that? Why would people go there when there's this whole universe of stuff to do in this like well-funded, well-resourced metaverse project? So I'm sort of being a bit patient on this land stuff now. Yeah.
That's the argument I keep hearing for Meta, that they might kind of win just because they're gonna have the money, they're gonna have the teams, they're gonna be able to buy up their competition if they think somebody's doing something really good, and they're gonna probably have the eyes with Instagram and Facebook and all that.
Yeah, Meta is an interesting one. I mean, if you look at Improbable, and I talk about Improbable, my fund is an investor into Improbable.
I'd love to hear
M Square technology. So we invested quite early, like I think 6 to 8 months ago when they were talking about it, and they were showing us what they had built and their experience. And unlike a crypto company or an NFT project that may have spawned in the last year or two, their technology has been building for the last 10 years, right? So they built the technology to scale your user base so that there's potentially 5,000, 10,000, maybe even 15,000 in the one instance, in the one place. You've got thousands of people. So that's revolutionary when it comes to game technology in general. I believe the largest you can have is maybe 1,000 or 2,000, and people are still trying to break those barriers. But this is like a $500 million well-funded team that have close to 1,000 people working for them. They've been going on for 10 years. So when you have a powerhouse like that, I mean, Meta has some serious competition. It's not like Meta's. Okay. I mean, yes, Facebook is Facebook. Absolutely agree with you. Very well funded, big. They already have the user base. But there's others that are working on specific metaverse issues and scaling that rather than Facebook trying to work on everything. And again, like Facebook, you should never underestimate Facebook, but I just feel like there is some other shapes that this space can form that isn't dominated by Facebook, hopefully.
That's good to hear. Yes. So to be clear, I'm not like rooting for Facebook or anything. I just, sometimes like they're like the Walmart, they can just do what they do. But so you're kind of excited about the other side, is what it sounds like.
I mean, I'm excited about the technology powering the other side.
Yep.
So M Squared, what they're going to do. So M Squared is the division underneath the Improbable company that's going to build like the network layer. So the network layer is where they're sort of using Bored Ape Yacht Club as one of the many universes or one of the many worlds you can build on M Squared. So you'll be using their tech. It's almost like Decentraland, except you're not buying a land plot. You just have your own server, like your own section on the network. And so anyone else, and I know they're talking to some other brands, they'll talk to some other projects. So you're technically building your corner of the metaverse on M squared, and they'll all connect because you're sort of using the same avatar base models, so you can sort of transition some assets across.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm more interested to see how that whole network comes to fruition. But absolutely, yeah, I'm not invested in Bored Ape Yacht Club or the other side, but am super interested to see how they build out and test that network layer and come out.
Nah, it's interesting to hear. And I'll ask one more quick question before I let Jennifer take back over. I kind of start monopolizing a little bit. It's good conversation. But if you were totally theoretically, to build a podcast studio in one of these metaverses, where would you build it?
I would use Decentraland.
Yeah,
personally, just because you can go there, right? You can actually have a meetup with hundreds of people there.
Right.
I think in crypto voxels as well, you can do it. Like crypto voxels has always amazed me with the amount of people they actually have for their meetups. I'm not sure how fluid and unbreakable their sort of streaming would be, and sort of audio. If you're streaming in audio stuff and video to display your podcast, whether it be live or pre-recorded, I'm not sure if those capabilities are fully fleshed out. But I know Decentraland, you can sort of do that. So I'll start with DCL, but hey, you can take that 3D model and go wherever you want.
Cool. Thank you.
We got to talk about the Metakey because, yeah, I mean, the Metakey is your project. I'm curious on how, like, what inspired you to create the Metakey, and then maybe just like a rundown of what is the Metakey for those that don't know.
Yeah, sure. So like the Metakey, the idea and the premise was that, hey, look, well, the core of it started as being like an extension of me, right? Me, Maddie, when it comes to DCLBlogger, like I'd get a lot of requests to collaborate with projects. I would make courses on YouTube. All of them would be free. I'd do all this stuff that would be very active in the space. And, I was getting to a point where some really good brands wanted to work with me. I just didn't have the bandwidth to work with them, or I just didn't know how else to work with them apart from just talking about them on YouTube and doing just this influencer stuff that you'd probably get. But I was like, all right, well, why don't I make a company that has an NFT, which we can work towards integrating it within this company that comes to me. So maybe it's like Audi or maybe Maserati one day. And we say, all right, well, you can use the Metakeys to maybe get a discount on a car or open a car. We can add some functionality that tests the bounds and innovates on the space. But Metakey owners will be people that have followed me initially, but will extend to be people that are interested in utility, so that these brands that come, they have this audience that they can plug into. That audience can get value back by going and doing stuff in these spaces. And it can be a bunch of different things that I can do that gives value to the Metakey owners. So I think a big part of that was, all right, well, why don't I just keep making YouTube content and just keep doing stuff for the Metakey community? And I started to do a little bit of that when in the early days. But the last year has been hectic with the kids. So slowly getting back into content creating again, doing streams, but things like giveaways, or they're very basic stuff. Giveaways are basic, but even things like making courses, so making like content specific courses for, like, imagine basically like a massive Web3 course database. And we're working on this. I think we're going to release it within like a month, where you can go in there and educators can create courses and earn points and that are redeemable for NFTs or maybe tokens one day. And then people that want to educate themselves, they can earn points. So it's like this ecosystem where people are organically making Web3 content, curated content, okay, how to be secure and safe, how to use a ledger, how to do this, how to do that. And there's all this content out there, and I can add content to that and you can have access to it. We were initially thinking you can have access to it if you have a Metakey, but what we thought was, let's just give everyone access to it. But if you have a Metakey, maybe the points that you earn can compound a little bit more than not owning a Metakey. So there's like that education base, and then there's all the brands and stuff. So yeah, Metakey has become basically like your access to what I do in the space and hopefully what I'll do beyond. So we're talking with at least 5 to 6 major brands and activating in the space and not selling to the Metakey community, but doing something to activate themselves, but the Metakey community having access to whatever they're doing. So it could be like, some sports brand like soccer or the Olympics, and they come in and they do like, shows, and they do AMAs with like their sports people. And maybe the Metakey community can have access to see and learn about what that industry is like. Maybe you can go get some free tickets at the Olympics or get a discount on that. Maybe if you have that, you can scan it at the Olympics and you can get some free, drinks or all sorts of things. So we're working with, this year has been a lot about merging with some brands. And I know we haven't gone public with any of them, but there's at least about 10 massive name ones that we're working on. But really hitting momentum. So we're also building our own sort of virtual world called New Ganymede, which will be like this massive gaming hub, social hub where you can hang out. But you can also do cross metaverse quests. So like there'll be brands or we will start giving you quests to go and 5-on-5 battles and all these sorts of things. But you can go to different games, finish the quests there, get items that are usable here. So we're really just innovating and looking at where within the space can we do new things and bringing that to the Metakey company and community. The problem we found in the early days is these partnerships are very easy to make, but they take 3 to 6 months to roll out. So it takes time to get these things finalized. The larger the brands, the more legal process it is. So I think we're starting to hit like second, third gear this year. So by the end of this year, well into the next year, we should be really going pretty quick with all these brand announcements and all this sort of stuff.
Wow, that was a lot of alpha that you leaked, like just so many different things you're talking about. And a lot of different things popped into my head. But one of the things that you guys had done in the past with partnerships that was huge, in my opinion, was the Artifacts partnership. And, one of the Metakeys is like an artifact Metakey, like you had collaborated with the artists from Artifact. And then I kind of forget if it was like you could claim a vial or what the situation was, but I remember my sister was like so pumped about that. What was it?
Yeah. No, I think it was like you could claim one Clonex for 0.2 ETH or something.
Yeah, it was like insane. Like, it was, oh shoot, I should have got that Artifact Metakey. And then it started pumping like crazy. It was going like 10 ETH or something, the Metakey. But yeah, so okay, the educational courses, that is so interesting because I do feel like one of the things that we really do lack in Web3 is not necessarily the lack of education or information, but like a way for people to access information easily. And it's just, there's a lot of information kind of scattered about all over the place. And, I have an entrepreneur background and I used to take a lot of, entrepreneur courses, and like courses is like a huge thing in the entrepreneur space. You can learn anything through courses. And I think that's genius to be able to have like Web3 courses and different educators coming in and kind of creating their own courses within that. And I love that whole idea of like the ecosystem rewarding people for, kind of reminds me of when we were going through that whole airdrop phase of like, rewarding users for using, interacting with our platform, like ENS we were talking about the other day. That the token airdrop and all that. Yeah, I love that. That's great. Rewarding people for learning. Learn to earn.
Definitely. I think the thing is there's a lot of information out there. And honestly, I think almost everything is out there, right? But people can't work with that. People can't work with everything being out there. They work with something more simpler, more digestible. So what we're thinking is, why don't we make curated courses on specific topics that are of need, and then put them in this space where you can go in there. You could filter it to NFTs and maybe minting, developer stuff, or making money, entrepreneurship, podcasting, social media, and all of this stuff. Very, very specific to Web3, and learn the Web3 component of this stuff. So marketing in the non-Web3 world is a little bit different. Marketing in the Web3 world is a little bit different. YouTube growth is a bit different. TikTok and all this sort of stuff. There may be a specific strategy that works well in the Web3 space, which someone with that knowledge can make, a curated 3 to 4 video course, 5 minutes each. Boom, it's there. And suddenly all this content is there. It's almost like a mini YouTube, but just for the Web3 space. And the cool thing is there's so many connections you can make. All right, you can earn points and do quizzes and stuff. Then we can have a virtual university in Decentraland or the Sandbox, where you can do a live workshop and maybe get some certificates, and maybe you'll get employed because you completed this set of stuff in the NFT space and entrepreneurship. And it'll be like, all right, well, Jenny or whoever has finished this whole social media section on Metacademy, and you've got a certificate, and suddenly companies might acknowledge that as a way that you've educated yourself in the space. Because I know when we were trying to hire for the Metakey, it's very difficult. Like we've interviewed hundreds of people, but the resume isn't sort of enough. It's more like we want someone to be native to the space that can speak the language, that have been here for a while, and this may be a way to qualify that. And there's so many things we can do. Maybe you can get a wearable or an NFT as a reward that's usable in Decentraland, or a special Coca-Cola hat that you can use in the sandbox, and you can do this partnership. So there's like so many gamification methods that we can build into this. It's sort of fun to add and experiment with.
That's awesome. And you said this is like potentially rolling out in a month, or like at least the start of it.
Oh, it's so probably phase 1, where you can go in there and watch a bunch of different courses. And then the adding of points and all that might take a little bit longer, but we got an amazing team building this out, and it's like 95% done. It's so cool. It's like all coming to life. You can filter it. You just got to add a bunch of different courses. So I'm personally going to do like a 100-piece course on the whole Web3 space. It's all going to be free, and it's going to sort of launch with that, but completely open for anyone to come in and make courses. And we pay for courses as well, so no one's doing it for free. We actually pay for that set of courses and get you guys going, and then hopefully get like 10 to 15 people in the space to make set courses to launch it off, and then hopefully it'll be a little bit more organic after that. How
can people find out about it now? Is there any type of, or maybe there's an account they should be following? I think I'll do a Twitter thread on the Metakey in about a week on what we're thinking about it. But you could DM the Metakey or myself if you want to make some courses or get involved somehow, and I could connect you up to that team to get something going. Yeah. All right. So, I mean, we'll put this in the show notes, but make sure you guys are following the Metakey on Twitter, and also DCLBlogger on Twitter. That's Maddie's personal Twitter account. Okay, let's switch gears here a little bit, because I want to talk about NFT gaming. I know you're really kind of into NFT gaming, and I mean, we haven't really seen, like, I play Gods Unchained. That's like my favorite like blockchain game. I just play it for fun. I've been playing for the past year, but there hasn't really been any like big games. I'm kind of curious on your thoughts on the future of NFT gaming. What do you think we have in store for? Oh my God, your cat is so cute. I love cats. Sucker for cats.
Yeah, she's my my work buddy. She gets in the way sometimes. But well, yeah, I think NFT gaming is going to be big. It's interesting to see how it gets there, though, because we thought traditional games might just turn on that NFT switch, right? Something like RuneScape or World of Warcraft or something that already has a user base. It's like, oh, well, now you can buy and sell the items you get. Totally didn't anticipate the backlash that NFTs would get in the gaming and arts world. It was so crazy. It was like no one wanted to see a 95% dislike rate ratio on Ubisoft announcement on YouTube. It was pretty insane.
Yeah, and Microsoft saying, "Oh, we're never going to do NFTs, guys. Don't worry."
Yeah, or like, Minecraft. It's become
NFTs.
Exactly. It's become like trendy and cool to bash on the whole NFT thing, and a good PR move to just sort of earn the trust of your user base. To be like, nah, we're not doing it, and somebody's like, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, we're never going to give you ownership of the assets.
It's
like,
so weird.
Yeah, why are
you will own nothing and you will like it.
Yeah,
yeah.
You'll just keep giving us money, right?
Exactly. It's so weird to see that happen. But what that does do is just give people native to the NFT space a tremendous opportunity to build games that are of high caliber, that start to garner a user base, and suddenly it becomes the example of, okay, wait a second, you don't have to keep buying NFTs for thousands of dollars. NFTs could just be rewards you get for doing quests and items, and there's this marketplace feature of it. And slowly being like, okay, well, I've got this game, it's got no wordings of NFTs, it's got no wording of blockchain. You just go there and play the game like you normally would, doesn't charge me anything, and then suddenly I get items that I can sell to each other. This is pretty cool. So it gives tremendous opportunity, I think, for own inbound in-house games within the blockchain world, like Axie and Infinity, to go out and give a little boost to the industry, or something else like Big Time Studio or Treeverse or whichever game comes our way that might go on to have a massive user base and break it for us. So I thought the major brands would be the ones that would push this, but it looks like it'll be internal. It might take a little bit longer than usual, but hey, at the end of the day, again, they're like super, super well funded, right? There's like tens of, if not hundreds of millions of dollars going behind some of these games. So they'll crack it at some point for sure.
Absolutely.
I have a question from our community that we were tweeted at, and they're like, can you start asking your guests this question? So you're going to be the first person to answer this question for us. Why do you think NFT projects fail?
Good question. I think there's a lot of reasons. I think it really comes down to the founder, the person behind the project. You could sort of have this there's inexperience as well, like when you send out NFTs out there, maybe you keep doing drops that dilutes everything else and suddenly no one's interested in it anymore. Or maybe you put a roadmap out there that will take way longer than the initial people anticipate, and so they get bored and move on. But the word failure is interesting in the NFTs because in the NFT space, because projects can die down and they could not get any attention at all, but 4 years later they become like the hottest thing in the whole space. Like some of the historical projects like Rare Pepes or Curio Cards or even Punks, for the whole bear market, like 2018, 19, and much of 2020, Punks weren't getting that much attention. Suddenly it got a lot of attention because people dialed back the clock and realized, oh, wait a second, these guys were the OGs, or one of the OGs, right? So, and even like Ethermon, I remember when Ethermon, sort of like a Pokemon game on the NFT space, it was a bit of a big deal back in the day, died down, and in the bear market they sort of threw in the white towel, and the original founder was like, look, this is not sustainable. We're going to sell this brand. If anyone wants to buy it, let us know. Then a company bought it over and they relaunched called Ethereumon, but they used the same assets. So the NFTs that you had of Ethermon, they turned to dust when they threw in the white, they sort of like gave up on it. But when it was bought over and suddenly they started to build on it again, those NFTs picked up in value again. So death is an interesting term in the NFT space. And I think the main cause of it could potentially just be that the community expects too much. And it just takes too long to build some of these things. Like Decentraland took 4 years. It was very, very painful to watch every day. So many community members left because for 2 years there was nothing to do in DCL apart from just look at pixels on a map and trade land, right? There was you couldn't go in. You didn't even know what it would look like. I think the expectations of having something to do ASAP or people's expectations of this having relevancy straight off the bat for months to come is wrong, because crypto and social media makes everything, you got to keep relevant across multi-year process. And as soon as you do a drop or an NFT drop, there's this whole process of community building that takes place. There's this whole process of process building, so that you hire a HR person, you hire a team that manages this part, the Discord members, you make sure that they work well to each other, you scale that team. That takes 6 months in its own self. So you're investing at a startup level, which is the riskiest time to invest. And I think people are expecting too much. So, yeah. And then not to mention the scams. I mean, we can talk a lot about the scams and the rug pulls and projects that promise things that they'll most likely intend not to deliver on. But yeah, a whole bucket of things.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, the pressure, man. There's so much pressure from everything is so go fast, like that people forget that, things take time, and
I know. Yeah. It's kind of like, well, what does an NFT project do to keep relevance? Like for me with Metakey, I knew I got really busy with the kid, and it was a bit of an experiment as well. I was like, all right, well, can the company just do really, really well without an influencer, myself, sort of pushing it all the time? So I backed off a little bit and noticed that the Metakey token dropped in value and there was less enthusiasm, and some people that were leaving left comments like, oh, Matt is not active anymore. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, why does it depend on an influencer or, someone to be that part of it for it to succeed? Why can't we do these awesome things, but why does it have to come from Maddie's account or these sort of things, right? But then that's the reality of it, is that, when you have the power of putting it out there, people believe in that power and people believe that you will keep bringing attention. So it was just an interesting realization about those things. And I think, there is pressure on looking at the marketing and lining up ways to continue to drop really cool stuff every week, or at least show what you're working on very, like, a lot in most of the, as frequently as possible. So yeah, it's a whole different ballgame to traditional building tech businesses, for sure.
You talked about historic NFTs, and I had seen that you had written a whole thread on them too. What are some of your favorite historical NFTs?
I like the story of CryptoPunks. I think they're pretty cool. I've owned some of them, then I flipped some of them. I don't own them anymore, but I do like that that whole story. But when I found out there was more history behind that as well, and there was some projects behind that, I thought they was pretty cool. They were pretty cool. I like curio cards just because it seemed like the first sort of art collection on Ethereum that people, you could see, like when you look at the curio cards, it had a lot to do with Bitcoin, which is the vibe back then in 2016, 17. I like rare pepes. I mean, how can you not like rare pepes? They're just like the coolest, memeiest things ever. And I mean, that was like so early 2015, I believe that was on like Bitcoin chain. There's so many, but there was a time when I was really into it and looking deep into it, and I just realized how big of a, there's just so much historical projects. There's like Spells of Genesis, there's like art, there's all sorts of art on the early Bitcoin chain. So there's like this whole, all this momentum we were seeing, there was a spike of that back in the Bitcoin world. On what's it called? XCP. What's that chain called again?
Something like that. Yeah, I forget.
Counterparty, right?
Counterparty, yeah. For Bitcoin NFTs or whatever.
Rare pepes and curio cards are my favorite ones, maybe because I'm invested, but I like a lot of them. They're all, even the rocks, like 100 rocks is just JPEG gray rocks. It's just interesting.
Wait, the ether rocks are going for like 100 ETH or something crazy?
I think they're down pretty bad at the moment.
I'm sure.
Like everything. I think where are they at? Yeah.
I have a curio card because of you, actually. You were really talking about him a lot. I have I got in kind of early with it, and then I saw it kind of skyrocket, and then I was like, well, I'm just gonna hold on to this thing. I forget which one I have. I think I have number 10 or something. And then I also have 2 like series 1 rare pepes. And I'm like, and then crypto crystals, I have a couple of those like from 2018. I have like a couple historical ones, kind of fun.
I sort of feel most confident in the historical NFTs when it comes to much of my other NFT investments, just because time is on your side. And every day that goes past, that set, the history always becomes more interesting and more valuable. Just like art, right? Xcopy used to sell art for like hundreds of dollars back in 2018. Now selling it for millions of dollars because he was relevant back then, along with a bunch of different artists. So time is always on our side. So I like certain projects that I personally felt that made a bang. And then, you know, whether it be 2 years from now or 5 years from now or 10 years from now, that project doesn't have to do anything, but just the time and the history and the user base growth will bring attention to those projects. So yeah, like CryptoPunks, you know, curio cards, hopefully, rare pepes and a bunch of others. So even the rocks, all of these things, they'll just keep resurfacing here and there and have their own spikes, I think.
Yeah, they have those cycles of like, all of a sudden someone rediscovers it, or like, I remember Gary Vee, he just randomly decided to get really into historical NFTs, and then all of a sudden, you know, a bunch of them started pumping, and then, yeah, they'll go through their little cycles, which is always interesting. And then, you know, when it's all quiet, everyone forgets about them, but then that's like the best time to buy if you truly believe in it, right?
Exactly. It is the best time to buy, but it's like the hardest time to buy because you just feel like, why are you the only person doing this and no one else is? Yeah,
that's happening right now with a bunch of projects. Like I'm looking at them and I'm like, oh, do I want to keep my ETH because ETH is probably going to go up, or do I want to buy these projects that I've wanted to get into? You know, it's definitely
there's that as well, right? It's like, it's just such a weird economy. It's like, do you spend your ETH or do you just hold it?
Right.
And then there's volatility. Then the price of things may change in ETH value. So there's also timing. Like you got to learn the timings of things.
Yep. Timing's everything.
Do you have advice for people that are maybe they don't have much money to spend on investing in NFTs, but they're really like interested in the space and they've just been trying to learn and, you know, figure out a way to get involved, but they don't really want to like put a bunch of money into like buying different NFTs and stuff?
Yeah, that's a tough one because NFTs specifically are like an unlock of an economical market that didn't previously exist. So it does tie into money at some point. It's hard to figure out like what to do. There's so much things that are happening here. Like if you don't have money, maybe you can stack skills in the space. Maybe you can become very good at development, very good at art, very good at running events or podcasting, social media. A lot of these things become insanely valuable in this Web3 space. And they bring money that you can use to invest in the NFT space. So if you're not willing to buy an NFT, which is fine. In fact, most people don't want to spend money on the internet. It's a thing that's very foreign to them, spending money on educational courses. Even that's sort of like a new thing. But spending it on an NFT, on an investment that you might not see a return in, or sort of like might seem like sunk money to you, that's a tough thing for most people to do. So I do get that mindset. But if you're not going to put in money, that's fine. You just got to put in time and resources and put in the work, right? To get money to invest in NFTs. So like some of the artists, like Ferocious was an interesting one because he was selling art back in the early days, and some of the art pieces started to sell for a couple of $1,000s. I remember when I got involved, I bought 3 or 4 pieces for a couple of $1,000s each. But Ferocious used that money to buy NFTs. So he became a collector of his own. So he financialized his skill to get money to use to collect in NFTs. So it's same like doing podcasts, or if you want to run events, or you want to start your own company, or all sorts of small things. But you have to do something more than the regular thing. You can't expect it to just come your way if you're just skimming the top or reading some stuff and not really doing anything about it, not really upgrading your skills, all that sort of stuff. You just have to be a bit proactive.
Taking action. Yeah, I remember when I first learned about crypto, it was like 2017. And I remember I literally spent like hundreds of hours just listening to podcasts, and I hadn't bought a single cryptocurrency. I was just like, I was kind of a little bit scared too and hesitant. So I was just trying to like learn as much as I could. But, really I knew that, okay, I had to actually, I needed to like take action and actually like decide to buy some, Bitcoin. I keep learning about it. I need to actually like try it out. Best way to learn is by doing. So
yeah. And there's no like harm in just like not buying anything. Like you could just chill here and just learn about it. And like you said, just devour podcasts and information just to learn what this new space has to offer. It could just be the experience stuff. Maybe you just want to jump into a metaverse space and talk to people about tech and all that. Got nothing to do with money, right? So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I got in Clubhouse. I was there every day for 6 months, all night long, sometimes till 4 or 5 a.m. Talking with people from all over the world, people I'm still friends with, nice. People we've had on the podcast, like really great people. And that's a really good way to learn. Now it's Twitter Spaces. It's not Clubhouse anymore. But if you want to learn, listen to the podcast, but also go into Twitter Spaces and just pop into some random ones and hear the conversations. And you'll learn a lot. You'll meet people.
I wonder what happened to Clubhouse.
Well, what happened to Clubhouse? Twitter offered them $4 billion in May of last year. They turned it down. So Twitter said, okay, we'll make our own.
Oh,
and Twitter Spaces. Honestly, what happened to Clubhouse is Twitter Spaces.
That was like with Instagram stories and Snapchat. I remember everyone was like, I used to always post on Snap.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, like Instagram stories comes out.
The big boy comes in, and right now, I mean, that was almost like that was like a courtesy offer by Twitter. They were like, would you like this the easy way or the hard way? And then you chose the hard way.
We'll buy you out or we'll put you out of business. Which one is it?
Pretty much. I remember when it started happening, the room started getting smaller. We started seeing more and more everyone shifting over to Twitter Spaces. And now I go on Clubhouse and it's like, it'll be like 10 or 12 people, like good friends. We talk about NFTs, but it's not like it used to be where the rooms were hundreds of people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yep. Yeah, Clubhouse was an interesting thing because they just didn't have any stored content. So there was like no reason to hang out unless you were in something live.
Right.
Whereas you go into Twitter, you're there generally because you want to read the updates of the day that you can consume, whether there's something live or not. So it already had the eyeballs, whether there was anything live or not. And then all they had to do was just add the functionality of spaces, and then boom.
Yeah. It's pretty much just like Clubhouse. I mean, it's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. But they offered. I'm sure the owners of Clubhouse.
That would hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
That's a story you tell everyone.
I know.
The founder.
Twitter. Yeah. We were like, nah, we got this. And they were like, yeah.
$4 billion.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Right. It's wild. I want to run it back real quick to Metakey 4. When it came out, I noticed that one of my very favorite artists, Jay Marino from Argentina, who I think is like, he's like a genius. I mean, his stuff like Japanese Garden and some of the new stuff he's even put out. Like, I am a huge fan of his from well before that. We've actually I messaged to congratulate him when that dropped. I just wanted to kind of find out how that came about. How did you know about him? Have you been a fan? How the connection happened? Because I mean, it's Jay Marino VFX on Twitter. If anybody wants to check him out, I mean, real genius with graphics. Phenomenal. And for sure. How'd that come about?
So we be a bit patient with the next artist choice. We let that sort of come to us. One of us maybe finds something that's super, super interesting. Then we're like, oh, holy shit, this makes a lot of sense. So Jay Marino's, I remember he did a piece where there was like some sort of a motherboard chip. It's 3D and it was spinning around.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, this could be a card. What if it was a card where each time it spun, it came to a different universe? So I had a bit of a vision in my head, but just gave it to Jay Marino, and what he did was like beyond anything that any of us had imagined. But yeah, look, I actually didn't know of him until I just randomly came across his stuff on Twitter and then hit him up, and he was excited. We were excited. And then, yeah, super stoked to have worked with him. I think his stuff really hits on that metaverse vibe. Like, he did some stuff with Artifact Studio. I know he's done some stuff with Triple8 or whatever designs he does now. There's like this like emergence of creativity on whatever he designs. That's super cool. So yeah, he's become a good friend of the Metakey, and we'll keep doing some stuff together. But yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, no, everybody, he doesn't get the attention he deserves, because he's a genius with that kind of stuff. People should go check out his work for sure.
He's done art for only a year prior to that. So
wow.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah, that's insane. That's insane. Yep.
Yeah.
He was one of I learned about him through Clubhouse, the early days of Clubhouse. That's how I came across him. A lot of different artists, but he was one of them. And I always watched him because that one of those early ones, I'm not sure if you're familiar with his Japanese Garden one, but that one just blew me away. Yeah, it's just really cool where this girl's like walking through this like tranquil Japanese meadow, and there's like lake and pagodas or whatever, and then she puts on this VR headset, and all of a sudden there's like dragons flying around and like battles happening. Like, it's really cool. Wow. Yeah,
I might go check it out actually.
Yeah, you should after the podcast.
Yeah.
Send me his Twitter, Michael, so I can check it out.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah, I will. I'll send you Japanese Garden. Yeah, for sure. And no, I mean, I'm a huge fan. I've always sent him little notes of congratulations. You know, we're not like friends or anything, but just to say what's up, and just because he's really that good. That's cool. That's cool to hear the story.
Do you have his art? Apart from
I don't own any of them. I don't even know if he's only put out like 5 or 6 for sale, I think, if I'm not mistaken. It hasn't been like a lot. I got to look closer, but I don't own any of his art, sadly. Yeah. I would like to. The last one that I saw that he put out for sure was like in April, and 888 bought it for like 18.88 ETH. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Back when Triple8 was way more active.
Back when he was around.
Before he rugged the NFT community. Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, we talked about that controversy a couple times.
Yeah. The slow rug slowly disappear all of a sudden. Wait, what happened to this person?
And they're anonymous.
No comment on that. I don't know. I feel like I've actually dealt with Triple8 a lot, like on calls and stuff, and he was like super, super enthusiastic and wants to do a lot of stuff. I don't think he had the intention to rug. I mean, this is totally off topic, but I just feel like he just promised
just
way
didn't do what he
too
promised.
Way too early than he could possibly have put out there. One big thing that I would have never done was sort of like kept telling or like putting too much pressure on the drop or the NFT sales and the price. Because when that drops, it's just very difficult to recover from. And if it drops from a really top point and you're still building your product and you're a year and a half away, then it's going to get real ugly. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, he pumped that up pretty big. Do you remember the video that he put out on his website, 888 The New World or whatever? It was like this beautiful video. Like, and that was early on. I was like, wow, this is going to be something. It had all the artists were involved. Like every artist you ever heard of in the NFT space was listed on there.
What was it called? New World?
Yeah, 888 TNW. The video's still
the
up.
new world,
888
right?
Yeah, the new world. 888tnw.com, and you can go watch the video. It's a spectacular video. I don't know who made that, but spectacular. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with these metaverse projects, right? Like, I'm sure he would have been like, "Oh yeah, we're going to build our own one," but some people realize like this stuff takes way too long to build out. So you can identify, even if it looks beautiful, like it's going to take a very long time to build out. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
I remember you had dropped we're talking about Metakey 4. You dropped it on Rarible, which I remember was kind of controversial at the time because people were like, why would you drop something on Rarible? You're like, well, we dropped the last couple keys on Rarible. like we didn't have any problems, but then all of a sudden there was a ton of demand when Metakey 4 came out and like Rarible just going to handle it. I'm curious, what are some of your favorite marketplaces besides OpenSea? Because, you've been around the past 4 years. You've seen a lot of different marketplaces. I mean, Rarible kind of used to be a lot more popular, but now not too much.
Yeah, different marketplaces. Not many, to be honest. I just stick to the regular OpenSea.
Do you like Looks Rare at all?
Which one?
Looks Rare.
Looks Rare a little bit. Not much. I'll be honest, not much. But a Super Rare, I guess that's an art marketplace. Back in the day, I'd be on Known Origin and Maker's Place when I'd be collecting art. The thing about marketplaces is that they need a very healthy stuff for sale. Like there needs to be a lot of things for sale for it to tie up both ends of it, so the buyers and the sellers. If you just go there and if you want to sell your Bored Ape but there's just no one there, then you're not going to sell it. There's no liquidity there, right? So it needs to tie up the orders and the sales and all that sort of stuff. So it has to have a lot of momentum before it can be usable. So I've just stayed with OpenSea, to be honest, just because it has by far the most volume, I think. Unless you're going to tell me that Looks Rare has a good amount of volume, because I haven't researched it that much, to be honest, but I'm happy.
Not quite close to OpenSea. You're right about that.
They're not as close.
There's more listings. There's more volume. That's where the action is still, for sure. It's hard to
I like the different. Yeah. No, I like the different experimental models that are being, experimented on, whether it be you earn tokens if you trade, or whether it be if you own some of the tokens, you get a discount. Like those sort of things are super, super cool to look into. I know that's how Rarible kicked off, because it gave people tokens if they bought and sold, and suddenly people were like, well, why should I buy and sell on OpenSea? I'm just going to rush to Rarible. So that's what actually kicked them off, but they couldn't sustain it because most of the biggest projects launched on OpenSea still. So it was interesting to watch OpenSea get all of that audience back by not having to release a token. Interesting times. But yeah, that Rarible drop with the Metakey 4 was just like way more than we could ever anticipate. It was gone within like 10 minutes. And I was like, this is insane. Like, how does this even happen?
Yeah, a lot of people watching and waiting. And, a lot of people knew about Metakey. They just, people don't really like buying on the secondary. Personally, I love buying on the secondary. Like I was like, I'm happy to wait, and watch the price for the next couple weeks, and then wait for it to be something that I want to buy into and then buy. That's what I did. But yeah, people like to mint. Like people love like minting something and knowing that, oh, they're the one that minted it, and it's like kind of something special. I mean, I think it's a little bit special to mint something, but and then you don't have to worry about it.
The most pressure happens at the mint, right? So that's just like,
oh yeah,
you'll still see projects now, no matter how big they are, go down or do something wrong. I think with the Artifact AR drop, there was like all sorts of issues, and every project has had these sort of things, and that's been happening for the last 4 years. It's just, I think one of the issues is that it's just very difficult to anticipate how big of a deal that drop's going to be. Like for us, it was very overwhelming. I was, in my mind, I was like, this will probably take a week to sell. Let's just line up some PR stuff. I'll hit YouTube. I'll hit everything. We'll sort of sell it slowly for the week. But yeah, gone within 10 minutes was just like insane. And that was with the Rarible down. So people were buying that via some other method. So that was like with just
from Etherscan or something, right? People were like minting directly from the contract or contract.
Yeah. So anyway. You learn. Hey.
Yeah. What do we have any alpha leaks for Metakey 5?
I'm not even. Metakey 5 isn't even in the roadmap at the moment. It's just like we have so much to deliver on with Metakey 4. We want to make sure that our indicator, I know it's a bit shallow, but it is the price. The price is an indicator of the health of the project. If it's not increasing, then we're doing something wrong. So we don't want to touch Metakey 5 or even talk about it or think about it until there's like healthy price action across everywhere. People are loving the products we're putting out there. There's a connection between the audience that we have with the Metakeys, and only then will we think about it. Like Metakey 4 made sense because Metakey 3 at the time was like 1 or maybe 1.5 ETH. And it did make sense to scale the audience. Now we have a great audience. It's like, all right, well, what does this audience want? So that's why I'm going to get my Twitch, my YouTube streams going on again. I'm going to make this core starter based thing, have way more brand activations, do a lot more on the marketing side, and then reassess what a Metakey 5 would look like. But yeah, I like the thought of adding a whole new Metakey edition is exciting. It's just a bit far away.
Fair.
Do you want to go into Ganymede a little bit more and let
sure.
us know kind of what to expect? Is Ganymede named after the Greek god or the moon of Saturn, or is the moon of Saturn or Jupiter? It's it's like the biggest moon in the solar system, right? Ganymede.
I don't know. New Ganymede.
Ganymede is the biggest moon. I'm pretty sure the biggest moon. Someone can fact check me.
Okay.
It's also a Greek god who was something to do with Zeus, like Zeus's lover or something.
Wow, look at you, Michael. With your
I don't know.
What is it? Mythology knowledge?
Yeah, the Greek mythology is something's popping into my head, but I don't know if I'm exactly right. So
yeah, it's the largest moon in the universe is Ganymede. Yeah.
Oh, it can't be the largest moon in the universe, in the solar system.
That's what it says. The 10 biggest moons,
That's what
number
Google
one,
says.
Ganymede.
Well, that's ridiculous. We don't even know of other. We can barely see the other planets. We can't even see them. We can just like detect them. That's crazy that they would say that.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's very irresponsible of Google.
Yeah.
Wow, how dare Google say that?
But it is the largest. It's probably the largest known moon in the universe. That could be. Yeah, but not the largest moon in the universe. Give me a break.
I don't know, man. That's what Google says. Whatever Google says.
Like it's like, no, I know for a fact.
Well, I mean, nobody knows. Nobody knows. But the fact that they would say that is ridiculous.
Just disgusts you.
Yeah, it's the largest.
Okay, but tell us about it.
Please tell us about the. So
not
the name.
I'll tell you a bit about.
Yeah.
No, I'll tell you about how it started actually, because
okay.
we were the premise of the Metakey was to plug into all these games and apps and brands and stuff. And then if you were to plug into games where if you own the Metakey, then you go into a game and we have our own building there, and maybe you can forge some items only if you have the Metakey. You can access some buildings only if you have the Metakey, blah, blah, blah. All of that needed design work of us and our team building out what that looks like so that they could just plug it into their game. So Michael and Billy and our art team, our social team, I mean, we're all nerds at the end of the day. We're all gamers. Almost every single person I've hired in the Metakey team are all like gaming obsessed. So they pitched to me, hey, Maddie, why don't we just build our own sort of universe, our own game, our own model of what we think this metaverse space is going to be. The plus side is that the avatars that we build, the buildings that we build, the mechanics that we build, we can just port these over to all these game partnerships that we go to. It'll be easy for us. It'll be easier for us to do these things. So I was like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. So they've been working on it for about 4 months. It's looking really good. I wish I could show you when I can. I'm going to be streaming again, so you'll be seeing it on my streams. But it's looking super, super good. Like as fluid as any AAA game would. It's only going to get better. But so far we've accepted CyberCon. We can use CloneX in there. You can use Cypher. We're working with BioPills as well to bring in their Apostles, I believe, and any other avatar projects. So the idea is you go in there, you do Fortnite-like events, maybe you like a Fortnite-like game, maybe there's a dungeon crawler, maybe there's all sorts of these different game types, but you do them in whether it be single player or party mode, but you do them in the avatar of your choice. That's the end goal. So yeah, super excited to build it out. It's going to be a merge of like the metaverse social spaces, like you see in Decentraland, where you can catch up and communicate and do a bunch of just fun stuff hanging around, or you can teleport out to games and get items and quests, but it's our little hub of experimentation. our little way of what we can do whatever we want with Metakey owners without any limitations of Decentraland, or maybe people just couldn't load Decentraland because their browser wasn't, their loading speed or their internet wasn't good enough, or maybe people don't like the sandbox aesthetic. We can work around that ourselves because suddenly we have full ownership of what we're building. So yeah, super excited. And the good thing is New Ganymede, whether it be New Ganymede or the Metacademy or the Metaverse events that we do, they're all the user base for that. It's beyond the Metakey user base. So anyone can come in, mint a passport for free in New Ganymede and start playing. The Metakey comes into play when you want to earn rewards. Maybe if you own a Keymaster set or a normal Metakey or anything, you get different choices of rewards that you get on completing those quests. So we're trying to find a way that everyone can participate. The whole Web3 space can participate, but Metakey owners get some form of functionality that isn't too exclusive, because at the end of the day, you need to be able to scale the project. Because if you make it too exclusive, it doesn't appeal to anyone unless they want to spend money, right? So it's this, whether we want to keep it to this community or do we want to scale it to millions of users to the gaming world.
Cool.
That's awesome. That sounds really fun. And I love that model too of like having it be open, to people for free. And then it's like, if you hold, this NFT, you get like special things from it, which I think is genius. And I love that. And, a lot of people are just like having things that are special and wanting to feel a little bit special. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like rewarding the diehard fans that were either there from the start or want to invest a bit of money and be part of it at a more intimate level. So it's cool to experiment, but we have to keep in mind that people like free experiences. People don't want to spend here, and we don't want to charge people money, right? So, yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to that when it comes out. Michael, do you have any last minute questions for Maddie?
Usually the last question I ask is about, favorite projects, favorite artists. He already did answer about his favorite kind of historical projects, but do you have any projects that you look at? You mentioned a couple. You mentioned BYO Pills. Jennifer and I are both fans. You mentioned a few X, Clone X, and a few others. Are there any projects that you really like that you think have great teams that are doing good things, or even artists that you want to shout out? Is there anyone you think needs some attention? I'd be interested to hear.
I like watching things sort of grow organically and sort of proving to everyone like what they can build. So yeah, I am a art collector, not as much as what I used to be before. Was super obsessed with ferocious art. I don't know why, but I just love the whole aesthetic. I love the passion behind it, like the videos that Ferocious will put out there and people that meet him. It's just like, everyone's happy and it's just exciting, right? So I like investing in that energy, the vibe really. I think that like podcasters and people that are running Twitter spaces and all that sort of stuff, that's an interesting way to invest. So I know like Pio and Nick, like they run the whole NFT, what is it?
Nifty Alpha. Nifty Alpha Morning or whatever.
Yeah. So my fund invested into them and we were like, oh, this is a pretty cool idea. I mean, they're going to be podcasters or influencers or something of that type, and maybe there'll be a media company, but like they're getting some pretty good traction and they released their own.
They're crushing it. Yeah.
They're crushing it, right? And they released the Nifty portal.
Yeah.
And that NFT has become representative of their activities in the social space. Like it grows if they do more. So it's an interesting way to invest in active people that are content creators in the space. So I think that model is quite interesting. In terms of different projects, not many. I'm actually quite selective, believe it or not. I throw my money around to experiment here and there, but when it comes to specific projects, I'm very selective. So the handful would be Clonex, Ferocious, gone complete mind blank. Treeverse is a little bit interesting. I like. I've been liking what I'm seeing with Loopify. Super interested in the gaming world. So, big time studio. Want to see what they've built out. I haven't. There's not much information on their land and stuff. I know they've sold these spaces before, but I don't exactly know how they're going to be used. So, waiting to invest there, if any. But interested to see a lot of how these games will sort of roll out.
Yeah,
cool.
Interesting.
I was just gonna say it's been a pleasure talking to you, Maddie. We've talked about having you on since the very, very beginning. We've always talked about the Metakey. It's been a big part of the podcast, so it's really great to have you on, man. And just thanks so much. Thanks so much for coming on and being honest and giving your perspective and all that stuff is really cool.
No, my pleasure. Totally do it again. Be happy to
Awesome.
just come here and talk
We'd
NFTs.
love to have
Always
you.
a fun
Yeah.
topic.
Always.
Yeah,
We'd love to have you.
Yes,
Awesome.
thank you so much for coming on the show. And hopefully everybody listening enjoyed this episode. And yeah, guess that's a wrap. Thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Peace.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to the NFT Catcher Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something new about the exciting world of NFTs. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you really love what you're hearing, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite platform. If you want to stay up to date with the latest news and insights from the NFT space, be sure to follow us on all the socials at NFT Catcher Pod. You can follow Jennifer at Jennifer_pseudo and Michael at NFTicket. I'm your producer, Andy, and I'm at AJC254. Our theme song's by It's Just Los. We always appreciate your feedback and support, which helps us reach more people and bring you informative and engaging content about NFTs. We look forward to bringing you more great NFT content in future episodes. Thanks for listening. Peace.